Hey, it's Friday afternoon. Quick update on the situation that's coming up with the alert day for tonight and early Saturday morning. The timeline on this hasn't really changed. We think it starts in Alabama as early as 10 p.m. Of course, it'll be rocking across Mississippi well before that. And we think it's going to go all the way through about 4 to 7 a.m. Optimistically, this could be below severe limits by 4 a.m. Pessimistically, it could be as late as 7 a.m. on Saturday, and then the rest of the day looks pretty good. Highest threat across Alabama tonight is going to be from high wind gusts that could go 50 to 70 miles per hour. And unfortunately, it's some of the same places that got hit so hard back in early March. March 3rd, we had gusts as high as 75 to 80 in North Alabama. I don't know that we go quite as high this time, but in some localized spots where severe thunderstorms are capable of ramping up the wind even more, it's entirely possible that we could be in some of the same kind of positions, maybe just slightly different locations that we were just about 3 weeks ago. Tornadoes, a medium threat of that. I don't think we have a big issue with hail or flooding through this entire event tonight. The greatest risk of severe weather is to the west of Alabama. And you may wonder, well, why in the world do we have such an outlook here across our state if this greater threat is out here to the west? The Storm Prediction Center outlooks are statistical by nature. That means storms are going to be more widespread here. Therefore, you have more storms, you have a greater risk of severe weather. And in some instances, when you have more storms, there's a lot more uplift, a lot more instability, and that's why you end up with the greater concentration of storms in this zone. Notice the enhanced risk has been pulled to the east across much of the state of Alabama, including places like Cullman and Huntsville and Athens and the Shoals, Hamilton, even right down through Walker County, Tuscaloosa County, and Pickens County. I don't want you to get too concerned about what color your county is shaded, because what's really going to matter from this point on is watches and warnings. We're already well into the ready and almost to the set phase of this. And later tonight, after 10 p.m., it's going to be go time. That's when you'll potentially have to move to shelter. If you already have a severe weather plan in place, great. If you don't have one, now is a good time to start putting one together. So this timeline is primarily for north and central Alabama. Of course, in Mississippi, it's ongoing well before this, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. from the state line to about this white line right here. So from, say, Harvest and Tanner and Athens through Decatur, down through Addison, Double Springs, Jasper, Fayette, to northwest Tuscaloosa, Aliceville, down toward Gainesville. I think that's roughly the 2 o'clock position of this. Between midnight and 4 a.m., it will be in this zone, and I think this white line right here that runs from around Center to Ohatchee, Pell City, Alabaster, toward Randolph and Centerville, and then down toward Marion and Perry County, that line is the rough 3 to 4 a.m. position. It could hang around here over East Alabama until as late as 7 a.m., but I think the severe weather risk is a bit lower by that point. So here's how I think it plays out. We have the greatest risk of severe weather in this zone, North Alabama. That's going to include Huntsville, Decatur, Athens, Florence, Red Bay, Arley, Hamilton, Jasper, Cullman, Arab, Albertville, Boaz, Fort Payne, Rainsville, Scottsboro. You get the picture. Everybody over the northern part of the state, including some of southern Tennessee too, by the way. It's not just stopping at the state line. In the Birmingham metro, it's mainly, I think, Jefferson, St. Clair, Blount, Walker, and Tuscaloosa that would feel the brunt of this. And by the time it gets southeast of Birmingham, Shelby, Bibb, Chilton, Coosa, Talladega, Clay, Cleburne, Randolph, down toward Alexander City. We'll have to watch it, but I don't think it's quite as intense. Here's the reason why. Sometimes our forecast modeling can be a little too hot, a little bit too strong. Well, this is something called updraft helicity. It's not something I'm going to show on TV and just let it play out for 30 seconds and then pass it by. It's essentially updraft strength and how much helicity or how much spin there is within that updraft. Those are pretty strong updrafts that will be tracking across Fayette and Walker and Cullman and Marion and Winston and Cullman and Morgan, and then certainly through Franklin, Lawrence, Limestone, Morgan, Madison. Some of these rotating thunderstorms will produce localized very high wind gusts, and in some cases they could produce tornadoes that maybe get us as high as 100 miles per hour plus. This looks like the greater risk of the high-end tornadoes would be over the central part of Mississippi to North Mississippi, Southwest Tennessee, and then it becomes more of a QLCS or a squall line by the time it crosses into North Alabama. So the primary impacts here are probably going to be north of Birmingham. The red counties here expect power outages. This is going to be a pretty rough night. So by 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, we're watching the cluster of storms that's out here over Arkansas and Louisiana. As it tracks to the east, watch what happens with it. You just get this explosion of storms from Memphis through Clarksdale, Mississippi, and then down here east of Greenville, headed into Greenwood and Winona and Grenada. It's still a few hours at 9 o'clock, even away from getting to Tupelo, Columbus, and Starkville. So watch this. By midnight, look how fast this thing is moving. Now it's from about, say, Green Hill and Muscle Shoals and Florence, southwest to Red Bay, Marion County. And I'll say this zone right in here, that's where I am most concerned about the maximizing of shear and instability, or muscle and fuel, if you want to put it that way. The engine has the greatest potential to do some nasty stuff in this zone right here. So that's places like Cullman and Jasper and Double Springs and Haleyville and Hackleburg and Hamilton, Fayette, Vernon, Sulligent, up to Decatur, and even around places like Phil Campbell, as well as Moulton and Speake, Hartselle, Danville. Be on the lookout, especially in this zone. That's where everything's maximized. We're going to get some strong wind gusts area-wide, but that's the spot that I'm most concerned about. By 2 a.m., now we're running from Jackson through Madison, Morgan, Marshall, Cullman, into Walker, West Jefferson, Tuscaloosa, Pickens, and Greene. This is not as strong down to the south, but it's still potentially severe in a few isolated pockets. Strongest part of this by, say, 4 o'clock Saturday morning is in Georgia, and then we're left with just some residual storms that might still have some strong wind gusts around Talladega County, Clay County, and into Calhoun County. Let's talk wind here. And this is non-thunderstorm wind, by the way. We've already had a wind gust in Birmingham to 26. Some places have already been as high as 25 to 30. And it's going to get higher through the evening. 9 o'clock over in Mississippi. These numbers that are not listed, but the coloring here, that's easily 40 to 50 already. By 9 p.m., we're in the 30 to 40 mile per hour zone over West Alabama. Not really that effective over East Alabama just yet, but then we get to 10 p.m., storms are getting closer. So Haleyville, Fayette, Jasper, Tuscaloosa, Utah, even Birmingham and Huntsville and Cullman really starting to feel the impact of it. And then look at this. By midnight, as that intense line of storms is moving through, Haleyville, Cullman, Muscle Shoals, Moulton, Decatur, Athens, all up here in this 50 to maybe 60 range with some localized enhancements along that line. I think Birmingham's peak wind gust is probably going to be in the 40 to 50 range. Same thing around Gadsden, Anniston, Talladega, Sylacauga, Alabaster through Shelby County. And then this all kicks on toward the east, and we are in much better shape for the rest of the day on Saturday. So it's an alert day. Here's our primary timeline, and the outlook here has shifted to Saturday. So we get that little marginal risk for Saturday morning, southeast of Alexander City, down toward the Auburn area. But our primary threat is overnight through early Saturday morning, 10 p.m. to about 7 a.m. at the latest.